My son's division saved his company $9 million last quarter by telling sick people no. I know the number because his mother told me, standing in my own kitchen, about 6 hours before I called that boy and asked him for $4,200 so I wouldn't die. I want to say this before I say anything else, friend. This isn't a story about money. Money's just how it kept score. This is a story about who comes when you call and who lets it ring. I'm 61 years old. I live on Draper Street in Warren, Ohio, in a house my father could have bought twice on a foreman's salary, and I can barely heat. There's a stain on the living room ceiling shaped like the state of Michigan. It came from a roof I've been going to fix since the year my grandson was born. It was the last Tuesday in July. Hot in a way that don't make sense in Northeast Ohio, the kind of wet heat that comes up off the Mahoning and just sits on the town. I was at the kitchen table with a stack of mail I already knew the contents of. Then Denise's phone went off on the counter, and I watched 34 years of marriage rearrange itself on my wife's face in about a second and a half. Trevor, honey, she said it like a song. Tell me everything. I set my coffee down. Is that Trev? Let me say hi. She turned her back, not stepped away, turned, squared her shoulders like I was a draft coming in under a door she meant to shut, and walked into the front room. 9 million? Honey, 9 million? A little laugh, high and young, a laugh I hadn't heard aimed at me in a decade. Well, that's your grandfather in you. My father could talk a man out of his own coat. I sat there and listened to my wife tell our son he'd hung the moon because his department got good at saying no. She came back in still glowing, and then the glow came off her face the second her eyes landed on me. Like a woman taking off a coat. He's flying to Columbus Thursday, she said. They're putting him in front of the board. That's good, I said. And friend, I meant it. Whatever that boy has done to me, I have never once wished him harm. Not one day. Denise didn't answer. She just slid the electric bill across the table at me, the way you'd slide a plate to a dog. Fix that, she said, before they shut it off again. Again, like I was a pattern. Before I go any further, pull up a chair. Get yourself a cup of something. This one takes a while, and it goes somewhere. I promise you that. Do me a favor while you're settling in, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what town you're listening from. I read every single one of them. Now here's the part where a man's supposed to make himself look good. I'm not going to do that because the truth is uglier, and the truth is the only thing I've got left worth anything. My father was Emmett Dawson. Him and my Uncle Roy ran Dawson Brothers Foundry off State Route 305, past Champion, 47 acres with a pour floor you could land a plane on, gray iron. Manhole covers, pump housings, brake drums. That place ate my father's lungs and paid for my teeth. And when it went quiet in 2009, half this county went quiet with it. Everybody told me to scrap it. Take the copper, take the transformers, walk away, let the county have it for back taxes. I wouldn't. And here's why, and I need you to hear this part, because it's the whole thing. That ground had two assets under the weeds that had nothing to do with iron. It had a 138 kilovolt transmission interconnect running right into it, a real one, live, energized, the kind you cannot build anymore without 10 years and a war. And it had a grandfathered industrial water permit off the reservoir, big draw, written in 1961 when nobody counted. I knew what that meant. I didn't know what would want it. I just knew that someday something was going to come along that needed a lot of power and a lot of water in one place, and there weren't but a handful of places left in America where a man could just hand you both. So in March of 2011, I mortgaged the house on Draper Street, and I bought out Uncle Roy's half. Denise begged me not to, sat on the edge of the bed with her hands in her lap and told me she'd never asked me for one thing in 20 years and she was asking for this, and I did it anyway. I want that on the record, friend, because I've had 11 years to think about it, and she was not wrong to be scared. She was right. She was right, for 11 straight years. In October of 2014, the letter came. Ohio, EPA, monitoring wells. On my land had come back dirty, a chlorinated solvent plume, the kind that moves like smoke through the water table. Wasn't mine. Came off a chrome plating shop that operated up gradient of us, and closed in 1988, 9 years before my daughter was born. Somebody dumped a degreaser tank behind a building in the Reagan administration, and it crawled underground for a quarter century and surfaced under my 47 acres. Didn't matter. It was in my dirt. So my dirt got locked. Voluntary Action Program. Can't sell it. Can't build on it. Can't finance it. Can't do a solitary thing except pay the taxes and watch the state take 11 years figuring out whose poison it was. The bank took the line of credit. Then they came for the house note. Denise read that letter at this same table, put her coat on, drove to her sister Paulette's in Boardman, and stayed 4 days. Paulette married a fella named Dale who owns 3-car lots. When Denise came back, she didn't ask me what we were going to do. She asked me what she was supposed to tell people. That's the moment, if you want it. That's where the marriage died. Everything after was just the paperwork running late. I've spent the last 11 years driving a plow truck and a mower for the county road department and rebuilding small engines in my garage on the weekends. And somewhere in the middle of it, my son turned 22 and decided the whole architecture of his life was my fault. In his telling, I gambled the family on a junk pile. Nothing I ever said moved that 1 inch. I think he needed a villain to run from, and I was standing right there, convenient as a mailbox. My daughter's different. June's 29. She's a hospice nurse. 8 years. She drives 70, 80 miles a day around this county holding people's hands while they leave, and then she comes home to a 1-bedroom in Howland off Route 46 and raises my grandson Micah by herself. He's 6. He's got her chin. She came by that Thursday with a crock pot of chicken and dumplings, the way my mother made it, too much pepper. She didn't say a word about Trevor or $9 million. She set the pot on the stove, kissed the top of my head, and said, "Pop, what's that in your back?" "Nothing. Sleeping wrong." "Uh-huh." She put 2 fingers on my belly, just above the navel, the way they teach them. Held them there. Her face didn't change, and that's how I knew. "You're going in Monday," she said. "That's not a question." I didn't argue. You don't, with June. Dr. Ellen Reddick came into that room the following week without a smile on her and put the ultrasound up. "Mr. Dawson, your aorta's 5.4 centimeters. Is that bad? We usually repair at 5.5. She turned the screen. "Yours was 5.0 in February. It's growing faster than I like. I'm not going to sit and wait for it. I want it fixed inside a month. And if we wait?" She didn't blink. "If that lets go, you don't make it to the driveway." "Okay," I said, "because what else is there?" Then a lady from Patient Financial Services came in with a clipboard. Charlene. Nice woman, and she looked like she wanted to be anywhere on God's earth but that chair. Turned out the graft Dr. Reddick wanted to put in me wasn't on the approved device list for the county employees plan. The plan's administered by an outfit called Vantage. Charlene explained it about 4 different ways and it came out the same every time. They'd cover the surgery. They would not cover the thing she was going to put inside me. "There's an exception process," Charlene said. "It goes to a review committee. But the hospital won't book the room without the device deposit." "How much?" $4,200. I sat in my truck in that lot for a while, friend. A 98 Silverado with 290,000 on it. I did the math 6 different ways and it came out the same every time, the way it always does. $4,200. And a son who just made his company $9 million. Here's the thing I hadn't said out loud yet. The thing I'd been carrying around all week like a stone in my shoe. Trevor is vice president of Utilization Review at Vantage. That's his whole job. That review committee Charlene mentioned, he sits on it. His initials are on the device list. The document that was standing between me and an operating room had my son's fingerprints on it. I told myself I wouldn't call him. Told myself that for 2 days. Then I called him anyway, because that's what a father does. You swallow it, and you dial, and you hope to God there's something still in there. 4th ring. "Dad, hey." Restaurant noise. Ice in glasses. Somebody laughing. "Can this hold? I'm at a thing. Trevor, I need 2 minutes." Muffled. Then, "Go." I told him all of it. The aneurysm, Dr. Reddick, the device, the 4,200, the deadline, and there was a pause, a long one. Long enough that for 1 stupid second in a hospital parking lot I thought maybe. Then his voice went flat as a table. Do you have any idea what it looks like if I put my own father through an exception request? My name is on those minutes, Dad. Mine. Then don't. Just loan me the ask. You bought that dirt. Quiet now. Mean. Nobody made you. Mom sat there and begged you, and you did it anyway. And this family has been paying the interest on that decision for 14 years. And now you want me to write a check into it? Again? Trevor, this is my life. Ask them about charity care. I could hear him smiling. That's the part I can't shake, friend. He was smiling. That's literally what it's for, Dad. That is what it is for. And then, softer. And I'll hear this one till they put me in the ground. I can't keep bleeding for a choice you made in 2011. Click. I called Denise next. Told her the whole thing. Asked her to talk to him. Don't you dare put this on him tonight. She didn't even take a breath. Do you know what he went through to get that title? And you want to walk in on the biggest week of his life with a hospital bill? Denise, the doctor said. Ask your daughter. Flat. She's got a job. Your daughter. Not June. 34 years, and she said it like June was something I'd dragged home from a shelter. Like she'd had no hand in it at all. Then the line went dead, and I sat in that truck in that lot for a long, long time. I didn't cry. I was past crying by then. I just sat there thinking about how a man works 40 years to hand his family something and ends up alone in a rusted-out Chevy doing arithmetic that never comes out even. I met June that Saturday at Verney's out on Elm Road. Vinyl booths, a waitress who calls everybody honey whether you like it or not. I wasn't going to tell her. I want you to know that. I had a whole plan. I was going to eat my eggs and let her think her old man was fine. She knew before I got my coat off. Sit down, she said. Tell me right now. So I told her. And friend, I have never been so ashamed in my life as I was sitting across a Formica table from my 29-year-old daughter, a hospice nurse with a 6-year-old and a leaky transmission fixing to ask her for money her own brother had turned down without setting his drink down. I never got to the asking part. June reached into her bag and put an envelope on the table. Then she turned her phone around so I could see the screen. A wire confirmation. $4,200. Sent Tuesday. To the hospital. 4 days before I ever opened my mouth. Charlene called me, she said. I'm your emergency contact, Pop. I've been your emergency contact since I was 19. I couldn't get any air. June, where did you? Every. And that's when I understood what she'd done. My daughter had $8,600 in the world. She'd been putting it away 4 years, $20 a check, in a coffee can and then a credit union. And 9 days from that morning she was supposed to sign for a little 2-bedroom at 1412 Elmira Street up in Cortland. Fenced yard. Room for Micah to have a dog. First house anybody in my family would have owned since my father died. The bank needed all of it. Not most of it. All of it. She pulled the $4,200 out on a Tuesday. By Thursday there was no loan, there was no house, and the $2,000 of earnest money she'd already put down was gone with it because the option period had run out in July. June. My throat closed all the way up. June, honey, you can't. Pop. She took my hand across that table and she gripped it hard, the way you grab something you have decided you are not letting go of. Her eyes were wet. Her voice was not shaking even a little. There's a house on every street in this county. She leaned in. There's not another you. Oh. And I put my head down, and I wept, 61 years old, in a booth at Verney's on Elm Road, in front of God and a waitress named Dot, and the whole Saturday crowd. She's the only one who ever saw me. That's what I thought sitting there. Out of everybody I made and everybody I married, she's the only one who ever once looked over and saw me. I had no earthly idea, friend, sitting in that diner, how much that Tuesday morning was going to end up being worth. I had no idea what was laying out there in the weeds off Route 305, waiting on me to still be breathing. But we'll get there. First you need to see what it costs to get me to it. They wheeled me down at 6 in the morning on the 26th of August. Last thing I remember is June's face right up against mine, both her hands wrapped around my fingers. You're stubborn as a fence post, she said. I already told them. They said that's the ones that come back. Then the lights went out. I woke up 11 hours later feeling like somebody had parked a truck on my chest. Dr. Reddick came by that night still in her scrubs, leaned down close so I'd hear her over the monitors. "It's fixed," she said. "Went clean. You've got another 20 years in you if you quit the salt." I laid there and I didn't cry. Didn't have it in me. I just laid there and thought, my daughter bought this. Not the insurance company. Not my son. A hospice nurse, with $8,600, bought me the rest of my life, and it cost her a house. I am going to make this right, I told myself. If it takes me till I'm 80. I had no notion how fast that was coming due. 3 weeks later, on the pull-out couch in her apartment, June told me the other part. She'd gone down to move her car around hour 4 of my surgery. Level 3 of the parking garage. Her mother's silver Camry was sitting there, engine running, Denise behind the wheel. June walked over and put her hand on the window. And her mother looked at her, looked right at her, June said, right in the eyes, and put that car in reverse and drove out. 40 minutes, she sat there. That's what June figured from the ticket she found later in the trash by the pay kiosk. 40 minutes, 140 feet from her husband's operating room, and she turned around. Trevor told me no from a steakhouse. God help me, I can almost live with that. He's a boy who built a whole self out of not being me. Denise told me no through a windshield, with her own daughter's hand on the glass. I recovered on that pull-out couch for a month, because the house on Draper Street was quiet and empty and I wasn't going to lay in it alone listening to myself breathe. Denise never texted. Not once. June's kitchen was about the size of a truck bed, and on the refrigerator, held up with a magnet shaped like a slice of watermelon that Micah picked out at a gas station, was a piece of paper she'd printed at the Warren Library. It was the listing photo for 1412 Elmira Street. Little white house. 2 windows and a door. And down in the corner, circled in red marker, was the closing date. September 12th. She never took it down. Not when the loan died. Not when the 12th came and went. It just hung there, and every single morning I got up off that couch and looked at it while the coffee ran. She's in there sleeping 4 hours a night, I'd think, because she spent her house on me. And Trevor's got a new build in Canfield with a 3-car garage. That thought sat on me heavier than the incision did. She'd come in every evening, still in her scrubs, smelling like hand sanitizer and somebody else's grief. And she'd check my belly, and heat up something out of a can, and sit down and watch whatever was on. And she never once, not one time, friend brought up that house. Never asked when I'd pay her back. Never let it into the room. That's the difference right there. Trevor gives so somebody will see him give. June gives and it don't even occur to her that it's giving. To her it's just Tuesday. It was the 15th of September, 20 days after they cut me open, when the mail carrier knocked instead of using the box. 2 certified, he said. Need a signature. One was from an outfit I'd never heard of, Kestrel Infrastructure Partners. And one had a return address I'd been staring at for 11 years. Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. Here we go, I thought. Another form letter. Another 6 months of, don't touch it, don't sell it, don't breathe on it. I sat down at June's little table and opened it anyway. I read it 3 times. The 3rd time slow, out loud, because I did not trust my own eyes. They'd traced the plume, confirmed the source up gradient. The responsible party's insurer had funded the remediation, and the state had closed it out. And at the bottom, in language that took 11 years and my whole life to arrive, covenant, not to sue, issued, effective, released, clean, mine. I set that letter down like it might go off. Then I opened the other one. While my 47 acres sat locked under a state order, the world had come looking for exactly 2 things. A lot of power in one place and a lot of water in one place. Kestrel had spent 2 years crawling this valley. And there wasn't but one parcel in Trumbull County with a live 138 kilovolt interconnect already energized and a 1,961 industrial draw permit already written. My father's foundry. The thing that killed his lungs. The thing everybody told me to scrap. The letter was an offer. A real one, with a signature and a number and a 45-day close. $21,400,000. Cash. I want to tell you, I hollered. I want to tell you I got up and danced around that little apartment. I sat very, very still. $21 million, I thought. And 5 weeks ago I was crying in a diner over 4,200. And then my eyes went up, the way they'd gone up every morning for a month, and landed on that refrigerator. Little white house, red circle, September 12th. She's out there right now, I thought, in somebody's back bedroom in Vienna, holding a stranger's hand while he dies. Because that's her job, and I'm sitting in her kitchen holding $21 million. And something in me went quiet and cold and very clear. I didn't call Denise. I didn't call Trevor. Remember that, friend, because it matters directly for what's coming. I called Arlen Boyce. Arlen handled my father's estate, and he handled the foundry, and he's the one professional in this county who never quit taking my calls, mostly because I paid him what little I could, on time, every month, for 11 years. Cliff, good Lord. June said you came through it. Arlen, I need you to pull something today. He heard it in my voice. What's happened? I read him the covenant. I read him the number. Long silence. Long enough I checked the screen. 21-4, he said finally. Cliff, that changes everything. I know it. That's why I need you to pull the other thing first, before we touch that offer. I looked at that refrigerator one more time. You remember what Trevor had us sign in 2019? Arlen got real quiet. The family asset realignment, he said. That's what Trevor had called it. His own words. He'd printed them on the folder. That's the one. Pull the original and read it to me. Word for word. Don't smooth nothing over. Here's what happened in 2019, and I need you to follow it close, because this is the whole ballgame. Trevor was up for the VP chair, and executives at that level file a financial disclosure. One of the questions on it asks whether you or a related party hold any interest in environmentally impaired real property. The answer that year was yes. Because my father's will hadn't left the foundry to me outright. Emmett Dawson was an old-school man, and it went in a testamentary trust, income to me for life, remainder to the eldest son, to Trevor. His name went on that ground before that boy could read his own, and it was radioactive on his paperwork. So Trevor built a solution. He sat his mother and me down at my own kitchen table, and he sold it hard. He told Denise the bank was going to come through the walls for the house. He told her this was the smart play, the sophisticated play, and that she should be scared. And friend, she was already scared. She'd been scared since 2014, and she'd been right to be. So she signed. A post-nuptial. She took the house on Draper Street, her pension, and every account, as her sole and separate property, and she made me take the 47 acres, and every liability that ever came off it, as mine, sole and separate. And to break the parcel out of my father's trust, and get his name off the county records and off his own disclosure form, Trevor had to execute a disclaimer. He signed away his grandfather's ground with his own hand. For a job title, Arlen called me back 2 hours later. I could hear him shuffling paper. I'm going to read you the operative clause. Both instruments carry it. Denise's and Trevor's. Go ahead. Does hereby waive, release, and forever discharge any and all present or future claim, interest, right, or expectancy, legal or equitable, in and to the parcel, and to any proceeds, appreciation, or value realized therefrom. He stopped, cleared his throat. Howsoever and whensoever arising. Howsoever and whensoever arising. Arlen, say that last part again. Howsoever and whensoever arising. Cliff, it doesn't say debt. I fought them on that word in 2019, and Trevor's lawyer wouldn't move off it. He wanted it broad. He wanted it to cover everything so it'd clear the disclosure clean. A long breath. Son of a gun. He got what he wanted. I sat in that kitchen with the afternoon light coming through those thin blinds, and for the first time in 11 years, the thing in my chest wasn't shame, and it wasn't grief. It was clear. Arlen, take the Kestrel offer. All right. Nobody outside this phone call knows. Not Denise. Not Trevor. Especially not them. Understood. And you set up a trust alongside it. Irrevocable. June's name. Arlen paused. How much of it? Cliff. All of it. Every dime after the taxes and the liens. And friend, my voice did not shake. That surprised me more than the 21 million did. She spent her house on me, Arlen. That girl gave up the only thing she ever wanted in her life, so I could have a graft put in my belly, and she has never once brought it up. Meanwhile, my son told me to go ask about charity care, and my wife sat in a parking garage and watched her daughter cry on the glass. I had to stop a second. So no, I'm not splitting this 3 ways so it looks fair. Fair already happened. Fair happened in a booth at Verney's on the 9th of August, and exactly one of my children showed up for it. Friday, Arlen said. I'll have it Friday. One more thing. Whatever I buy her, don't put my name on any of it. The trust owns it outright. I don't want one hinge on this thing anybody can swing later. Airtight. Airtight. I hung up and sat a long while listening to that window unit rattle, looking at a little white house on a refrigerator door. They're going to find out, I thought. And when they do, nobody's going to walk in here and ask how my incision's healing. I was right about that. I was just wrong about the reason. Listen, if you've made it this far with me, do me a kindness. Drop a comment and tell me what you'd have done. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed, because I want you here for what happens next. My son came through my daughter's door, ready to bury me in lawyers. He had no idea he'd buried himself in 2019, in his own handwriting, on a document he was so proud of he printed his name on the folder. The sale closed on the 30th of October. The deed recorded on the 4th of November. And here's what I didn't know, and what he didn't tell me, until he was standing in that kitchen. Vantage recertifies executive disclosures every 5 years. His came due that November. Compliance runs a routine title sweep on VP-level people, standard, automatic, nobody's idea of a witch hunt. That sweep hit a $21 million transaction in Trumbull County, Ohio, and found a vice president's signature sitting right there in the chain of title of a parcel he had sworn, in writing, he held no interest in. He hadn't lied. Not technically. The disclaimer was real, and it worked exactly like he built it. But friend, in his line of work, looking like it is the same as being it. They called him Thursday and asked him to come in Monday morning and explain himself. The document he wrote to prove he was clean is the exact document that put his name in the file. He knocked on June's door Friday night, 8 days after the deed recorded. Pounded, really. Like the sheriff. Dad, open this door. I know you're in there. June got there first, still in her scrubs, pulled it open and gave him a look I'd seen her give Micah exactly twice. You want to explain why you're beating on my door at 9 o'clock at night? He walked right past her. Denise behind him. And I want you to see this. 36 years old, shirt wrinkled, tie yanked loose, sweat through his collar in November. My wife behind him with her arms crossed and her chin set. Neither one of them looked at me. Neither one of them asked about the surgery. Not one word about the scar. 74 days and not one word. Dad, his voice cracked right in the middle. We need to talk. Now. Sit down, son. You look worse than I do. He didn't sit. He paced. 21.4. He was breathing like he'd run there. Compliance ran my file. Do you understand what you did to me? They've got me in a room Monday morning, trying to explain how my signature is on a parcel that just, he stopped, started over. You sold it, and you didn't call me. I looked at him a good while before I answered. Last time I called you, Trevor, you were at a steakhouse, and I was in a hospital parking lot. You told me it wasn't your problem. I let that sit. So no, I didn't feel any particular need to call you when something good happened either. That should have been where he softened. You hit it. His finger came up, jabbing at me like that'd make it true. You knew that cleanup was closing out. You knew that ground was about to pop. You had us all living like we were broke. Mom's driving a Camry with 190,000 miles on it while you sat on this waiting to hand it to your favorite. He believes that, I thought. He's rewriting 14 years standing in a kitchen, and he believes every word. Trevor. Quiet. Quiet enough that the room got quiet with me. I found out that land was worth $1 on September 15th. Sitting on that couch, recovering from a surgery your sister paid for with her house. Denise stepped up then. Don't you stand there and play the victim, Clifford. I gave you 34 years while you dragged us through the mud over that junkyard. That money belongs to this family. You're being stingy. Trevor got there first, like he'd been holding it. You know what you are? You're a stingy old man sitting on $21 million in a rented kitchen being stingy about it, and it is the ugliest thing I have ever seen. Stingy. I turned that word over a time or two, friend. Stingy. From a man who wouldn't spend $4,200 to keep his father's heart in his chest. We're not asking. And here's where his voice really changed. Dropped down. The voice of a man who thinks he's already won. Mom files Monday. 34 years. Financial abandonment. Concealment of marital assets. And I've got a guy drafting a motion to freeze every account that Wire touched until a judge sorts it out. He brought his hand down flat on June's kitchen table. Hard. The same table where she'd put her phone in front of me with the Wire confirmation on it. You want to spend what's left of your life in a courtroom in Warren with a hole in your gut, fighting your own family? I'll do it. I've got money for lawyers, Dad. You've got a trust that isn't even seasoned. That's my daughter's table, I thought. And he just put his hand on it like he holds the paper. I looked at Trevor a long moment, then Denise. Then I stood up, slow, careful, still tender through the middle, and I reached into my coat. You want to talk about lawyers, son, I said. Let's talk about lawyers. I put the first document in front of Denise. She looked down at it, and I watched the color go out of my wife's face before she got through the first paragraph. 6 years ago, I said, the two of you sat me down at my own table. You were scared. And Denise, I'm going to say this in front of him, you had every right to be scared. I mortgaged your house against your begging, and I was wrong to do it, and I've never once said different. Her mouth opened. Nothing came. But he told you it was smart. I tapped the paper. So you signed. You took Draper Street and your pension and every account as your sole and separate property, and you legally forced me to take all 47 acres and everything that ever came off it as mine. I slid it closer. Read it again, I said, and friend, there wasn't a drop of pleasure in me watching her hands start to go. It doesn't say debt. It says, howsoever and whensoever arising. You didn't just wall yourself off from my failure, Denise. Under Ohio law, you converted that ground into my separate property, and you released every future claim to $1 of its value. Your lawyer explained it. And, Trevor, I turned. You signed your own. Because it was Grandpa's trust and it was your remainder, and your name had to come off it before Vantage would put you in that chair. Trevor had gone gray, but he wasn't done. That boy is never done. Doesn't matter, he snapped. I'll still take you to court. On what grounds? I put the second document on the table in front of him. Look at that before you finish that sentence. He looked down. It was a bank statement. His sister's, $9. That's what was in June's account on the 26th of August, I said. The morning they cut me open. $9, Trevor. I didn't plan that. God, as my witness. That's just the number that was sitting there. Because 2 weeks before that, she wired $4,200 to a hospital, and it cost her a house on Elmira Street she'd been saving 4 years for. While you were making your company $9 million by teaching a committee how to say no. I let it sit. You want to go to court? Son, bring every lawyer in this valley. But first you're going to stand in front of a judge in Warren, Ohio, and explain how you mean to claim a share of an asset your mother waived in writing, on your advice, in a document you notarized and signed yourself. And then that judge is going to ask you where you were the night your father needed $4,200, and where your sister was. Nobody said one word. Just that window unit. And a neighbor's TV bleeding down through the ceiling the way it had every night for 2 months. I didn't hide anything from you, I said, and my voice finally came down soft and tired and finished. The trust closed on the 30th of October. Irrevocable. All of it goes to June. I folded my hands on her table. The first wire Arlen sent went to a man in Cortland who couldn't move a 2-bedroom on Elmira Street all fall because the furnace was shot, and nobody in this county wants a bad furnace in October. It was still sitting there, Trevor. The same house. I put a furnace in it Tuesday and I closed on it Wednesday. Cash. The trust holds the deed. Her name. Behind me, in the doorway, I heard my daughter make a sound. There's an account for Micah's school. And I funded the overnight respite program she's been begging that agency to pay for 3 years running, so a family in this county can sleep one night while somebody dies. That'll cover about 400 families a year. I didn't turn around. She doesn't know that part yet either. Denise found something, barely. Cliff, I'm your wife. You want to know why, Denise? It's not the money. It's not 2011. I looked at her. It's level 3 of the parking garage. August 26th. You sat in that car 40 minutes. Your daughter put her hand on your window. And you put it in reverse. The last of it went out of her face. Trevor told me no from a restaurant, I said. I can nearly live with that. You told me no from 140 feet. Nothing. 34 years, and my wife did not have one single word. I looked at my son's hand, still flat on that table. You're standing in my daughter's kitchen, I said. Get out of it. And they went. No slam. No parting shot. Two people walking out of a one-bedroom in Howland, Ohio, working out in real time that the very cleverness that boy had been so proud of, the smart play, the sophisticated play, the folder with his name printed on it was the exact hinge that had locked them both out of a fortune neither one would ever touch a dollar of. June was still in the doorway with her arms around herself. Pop. Barely a whisper. That's you can't give me all of it. Already did. 4 days later, she drove me to Arlen's office and sat me down and slid a folder across at me. $2 million out of her trust into a care subaccount. Medical, long-term, mine, irrevocable, and I couldn't touch it for anything else if I tried. June, honey, I don't. She put her finger on the signature line. That's not a question, Pop. There's a house on every street in this county, she told me in that booth on Elm Road. And she was right. There was another house. Turned out it was the same one, sitting there all fall with a dead furnace, waiting on the two of us to catch up to it. She was right about the other half, too, though I'd argue the point. A man like me, they can replace on any given Tuesday. But I have been on this earth 61 years, and I have never once come across another one of her. Trevor went on administrative leave that Monday. He resigned in December, pursuing other opportunities, the letter said. Bridget filed in January. That new build in Canfield went up in March and moved in May for less than he paid for it. He called his sister one time, a Tuesday afternoon in February. June was in a back bedroom in Vienna, Ohio, holding a woman's hand while she left this world. She let it ring. And here's the part I've never said out loud to anybody, and I don't intend to. Denise got the house on Draper Street. Sole and separate, just like she wanted, just like she signed for. She's still in it. Still under that ceiling stain shaped like Michigan, under a roof I was always going to fix. Her whole life, since she was 9 years old and her daddy took her out in a John boat, my wife wanted a little place on Mosquito Lake. 1412, Elmira Street, is a mile and a half from the spillway. You can walk to that water in 20 minutes. I didn't pick it. June picked it 4 years ago, off a printout at the library, and she has never known one thing about her mother and that lake. I'm not going to tell her. June's neighbor mentioned something to me last spring. Said a silver Camry comes down Elmira sometimes. Slow. Never stops. Never has. Just goes slow. And goes on. If this one got you, hit that like button and get yourself subscribed. And drop a comment down below and tell me what town you're listening from. I mean that. I read them. I'll see you on the next one. June sent that money 4 days before her father could get the words out, because she was already watching him. That's the whole trick. And it costs nothing. Don't wait for the people you love to ask. Asking is the hardest part, and pride keeps most of us quiet. Just notice. Call first. Show up early. And when somebody does it for you, let them. A small note before you go. Friend, this story was created and fictionalized by AI, meant to entertain you for a while and to leave behind a little something warm worth carrying with you.